Hi, this is Richard Lucas introducing the idea of pre-events and why they make sense and giving some tips on how to run one. Pre-events, what are they and why do they make sense? So I've been doing pre-events before events I've been going to for almost 10 years. Back in 2011 I was going to TED Global in Edinburgh, and I thought I'm going to this event because I really want to meet other people who are going to the event. I posted on a couple of forums that I'd like to meet people before it happened, and I ended up meeting one other person in a coffee shop or a bar. I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't have a context in which to take it further. Before TEDx Warsaw in 2014, I did one in collaboration with the curator, and before a TEDx Warsaw in 2016. Together with TEDx Krakow, we did one before TEDx Kazimierz event. In Calgary, Canada, I did one before the TED Summit in 2016. In 2018, before the TED Fest in New York, together with Aaron Sylvan. Later in 2018, before TEDx Cape Town in South Africa, where I'd nominated a speaker and I wanted to hear Jill Grozer give her TED talk. I did a pre-event down there. Did one before the TED Summit this year in 2019. I did one before the TEDx Weekend Roma in Rome in 2019, and we've just done one here in Taiwan before the TEDx Weekend Taipei, together with All Hands Taiwan, a local networking organization and a community space called Red Room. Why do I do these things? It solved a problem. I realized that when I went off to events, one of my motivations was to meet other people, and that if you don't have a means of reaching them, you can be posting on forum Facebook groups, and you quite often end up in a noisy bar or coffee shop. You're there at a different time from other people arriving. There's huge coordination problems. Quite often people who want to meet other people show up late because they're worried about being there by themselves with strangers. There's a general lack of process, and importantly, the organizers of the main event are often way too busy, occupied with their main event, to worry about what happens beforehand. There always will be time before things start. It's inevitable. There must be, and this pre-event idea is a way of putting that to good use. The way I've done pre-events has evolved, and they can evolve further and indeed be modified. They make a lot of sense for first-timers, people who've never been before. They make a lot of sense for people who are out of town, but they also make sense for people who are experienced, who can kind of mentor and advise the first-timers and explain to them how things work. Another reason I do these things is because clearly it builds community. It's a great way of giving people more time, because particularly in a curated event like a TED event or a TEDx event, the content is really great, the number of attendees is large, and the breaks are not long enough to possibly give you time to meet everyone. And there's what I call ROMO, not FOMO, fear of missing out, not JOMO, joy of missing out, but ROMO, reality of missing out. If you don't know that many other people at the event, if you are a first-timer, it is inevitable you're going to miss out quite a lot. If you show up to an event the evening before, you just won't know where the party is, and you feel excluded and marginalized, or you may be. And as I said, they can be customized. It's a key part of an event like a pre-event is an icebreaker or many icebreakers. I'm going to spend a few minutes running through types of icebreakers, because what icebreakers are ways of facilitating strangers, people who don't know each other, talking to each other without feeling awkward, or to the extent it's awkward, everyone else is doing it, and it quickly and easily gets people into a situation where they've met lots of people and they know a few people, so when they go to the event afterwards, they've already got a pre-existing network. If you're wondering what that picture is, that reflects my sense of humour. No further comment. Typical icebreaker is you tell everyone to be quiet, you ask them to stand up, you ask them to introduce themselves to someone they don't know, and discuss a question. I'm not going to read these questions out, and remember, these questions can be customized. It's ideal to have them on a screen, but you don't have to have them on a screen. On the other hand, not everyone will hear you. A screen makes it easy for those who don't hear to look up and check the question. What's important, if everyone else is doing it, the people who aren't doing it feel a social pressure to do it as well. People feel a little uncomfortable with icebreakers. It takes them out of their comfort zone, but my experience again and again and again is that it's well worth it. That initial price of awkwardness pays back many times over in terms of introducing people, particularly introverts, to a few other people who they can then stay with and identify with later. You can have symbols like this. I'm only going to show one of these. This is one way of shutting people up. An excellent way of getting people to be quiet at the end of an icebreaker is to say, when you hear me saying shush, please sit down. People don't like to be left the last one standing. And if you don't ask people to be quiet, it can be quite awkward, because you shout into the microphone, or you say into the microphone, please be quiet, please sit down, or just be quiet, and people ignore you, and then you have a feeling that you're interrupting them. If you have a means of getting them to shut themselves up, use it. The sit down, so that the people who are talking feel they must sit down and be quiet, works very well. Another thing you can do is have conversation cards like these. We produced these for our TEDx Kashmir event. You can distribute cards. There are different formats for this, but basically the idea is to get people to talk about things that they wouldn't normally talk about with people they've just met. It helps them open up and moves conversation from the somewhat templated, tell me about what you do you have any hobbies, what's your family situation, to things that you wouldn't normally discuss with a stranger. It's worth getting to know people better, and little cards like these can really help. Other icebreaker questions, I'm just going to jump through them. If you want to read these or contact me for more or Google them, you can. You can just stop this loom and look at the questions in more detail if you want. As I said earlier, a bit of context. You can ask more personal questions or less personal questions. Sometimes if there's alcohol involved at the event, towards the end of the event, you can set things up to be a bit funnier, but that's entirely up to you. These things can be done in church groups, they can be done in all kinds of circumstances. If it's a business event, you can ask more businessy questions like this one. Speed dating, can work extremely well. You make everyone face each other standing up, or sit on chairs facing each other, or they can be in concentric circles. When you read out the question or call out the question, again, tell people to introduce each other to themselves first, because the point is not really to answer the question, but to help people get to know new people. So introduce yourself and answer the question, which could be like the ones I've shown you above, or it could be additional different questions. You get your time limit. When the whistle blows and you need a whistle or something quite loud to get people to move, then one line stays absolutely static and the other line moves one to the left or one to the right, meaning that one person is left without a partner at the beginning of the line to have their conversation with, and one person drops off the end. The person who drops off the end runs around to the beginning, and then everyone's got a new person to start their conversation with. And you have a new question each time, so you're not answering, tell me about your pets or your hobbies, for 10 times in a row. A different question each time. You do need to have a few volunteers and help to move people along, because it does require discipline. You do have to sort of make sure people comply. One person who doesn't move screws things up for everyone else. And the nice thing about this is, as people arrive, if you've got latecomers, it's easy to incorporate them. This agenda just shows the type of schedule I had for the TEDx weekend pre-event in Taipei in 2019, but you can obviously customize these. And I'll end with a call to action. If you're a TEDxer and you want to do a pre-event before your next TEDx event, I will certainly help and mentor you. Beyond this, if I can find other things to do at the same time, for example, set up a chatty cafe, do workshops in primary, high schools, universities or business schools about entrepreneurship, then I may well be ready to come to your city and do a pre-event. Even if you don't have English as a language at your event, maybe there are a couple of people in your team who could help with a translation. I can mentor them and be on the spot to help them make sure it works, because like everything, if you've done it before, it's easier. It's not hard to do. It's certainly worth it. Anyone who's got any questions, you're welcome to contact me. I realize I haven't put my email in the address, but if you Google Richard Lucas and Krakow, Poland, or write to me on richardlucas@richardlucas.com, you will find me. Thank you for your time.